Hey guys, and welcome to Gil-Kist Nation Sports Talk about the NBA. I'm your host, Pedro. Buddy Wolfgang has to be out today. He's my cousin. He's been doing pretty bad. So I'll be taking over the show. We're gonna go in a new direction compared to the previous episodes. So, this week we're gonna do a little bit more talking about teams we think are elite and what they're gonna do leading up to the break. And same things with teams we would consider to be, well, in a mixture of a wash. So, let's get started. All right. In the Eastern Conference, we'll start with these elite teams, the strong, the sophisticated, the mighty. Our very first team, of course, happens to be Milwaukee. Milwaukee's going into what we would consider to be an easy week leading up to that NBA All-Star weekend. They should be quite comfortable, in control of the Eastern Conference, and pretty much win their way through to get to that spot and maintain that first seed. If we're going to continue on, we're looking at Toronto. The Raptors. Very interesting team. I think this team should be doing pretty well as well, maintaining their position in the Eastern Conference as that 2 seed. Their biggest game really is going to be at Philadelphia. Philadelphia will present a big challenge to them if they're healthy, especially because this is a team, as you know, is still trying to figure out more and more every single day who they are. Now, if we continue on, we've got the Celtics, the big Boston Celtics. And they have a very interesting week coming up here, all the way to the finish line. First off, they get to play both LA teams. What do you know? Quite the week. Their football team just won the Super Bowl against LA, and now look at the basketball team gets to play both LA teams. They get to be at home, so that's going to be nice for the Celtics. And of course, they're going to finish up their transition going into the All-Star break against the Sixers. So that'll be very interesting for the battle of position in the Eastern Conference, but there's of course a long way to go. But that matchup might be a matchup we want to get more focused in on because that's a very big potential playoff pairing that we might see. All right, the Celtics should continue to be clicking together. They don't have too many injuries. They got some guys kind of sitting out every once in a while, but we should see this team start to gain more identity, we hope. Now, the team that really needs to gain identity right now is going to have to be the Indiana Pacers. Ooh-wee, losing Victor Oladipo is such a shame. Shame. But don't you worry, my friends, this team is loaded with depth. Now, the question is, can they get it together? They've been up and down as of late, and now's their time to get it together. They get to be at home versus both LA teams, so that's going to be nice. And of course, they get to be at home against the Milwaukee Bucks before we head into the break. So this is a great opportunity for them to really figure out their rotation, who's going to take charge, who's going to be the leader of their team. Against these LA teams that we know are kind of middle of the road, if LeBron plays, hey, that's going to be a good test to them. And then next week, ideally having played a couple games, once they get to play the Bucks, we get to really see this team take flight. Are they going to show up against the Bucks, or are they just going to fold? Because if they can rise to the occasion, they can show us, hey, this team actually will still be able to be a contender in the playoffs. All right, let's continue on to the Sixers. Like we said earlier, they're going to be playing against Toronto, but they also got to play against the Nuggets and the Lakers, all at home. So that's kind of a tough week for this team. They're going to have to really keep their ground, maintain steady. Now, they had that upset win against the Warriors on the road, which was terrific. Of course, Klay Thompson didn't play, but still, it's good to get that win against a mighty team. So let's see if the Sixers can keep it going together, build momentum heading into the break, and maybe even give themselves the surge they need to be able to be in the top 3 of the Eastern Conference. All right, it's time to go to the Western Conference, talk about some of these elites. The Warriors. we can drink to their success every single day because they're the most dominant team. And they will continue to be the most dominant team leading into the break. No challenges. They get to play home against the Jazz, and they're at the Trailblazers. Okay, some little bit, but nothing really to be concerned. The team you want to be concerned really is going to be the Nuggets. A bad loss the other night, really bad on the road, and they're going to stay on the road. Games against Brooklyn and Philadelphia. This is going to be some interesting matchups for them, being on this little road trip. So they got to be careful, these Nuggets. They cannot be falling apart anytime soon here, or they will lose their spot in the Western Conference standings. This is a team that's been having mixed injuries, and really when you're looking at it, they got a lot of young guys that just need to step up and have been stepping up, but gaining consistency is the main thing going down the stretch. So it'll be interesting to see how they do this coming week. All right, the Thunder. The Thunder are the most interesting team, in my opinion, in the league as far as what they are going to bring to the table when it comes to playoff time. They are the one team I feel is the biggest threat of all, at least to taking down the Warriors. So, looking at the Thunder, they're going to go up against the Rockets at the end of the week, and they'll be home to Portland next week before the end of the break. That's going to be a very interesting matchup for these two games. If they can take care of business, they can pretty much solidify themselves in a good spot, knowing they have a lot of confidence against any opponent they might have to play in that first round, because these are two likely opponents they'll have. So that'll be nice, whereas last year, they didn't have such a nice time in that first round. Okay, let's talk about the Trailblazers a little bit. These guys have about some medium challenges this week against the Heat, the Spurs, and the Mavs. They do have the Warriors and the Thunder, though, coming in the next week. So this is going to be a very big test for them going into the break. They've had a lot of momentum recently, gaining their ground into the top 4 of the Western Conference. And now we're really going to start to see if they can keep that momentum and stay in that position. For me, I don't really quite see them being a contender going down the road. But if they can keep on doing what they're doing in the regular season, they'll put themselves in good position. But then when playoff time comes, we all know that's going to be the real question. All right, let's talk about the Wash. So the Wash is basically a mixture of teams that, well, they're not necessarily bad, but they're going to make the playoffs, but they also could be pretty good. Now, some of these teams will be a wash and are not going to be good, and then some of these teams have the potential. If we look at the Eastern Conference, you're looking at Brooklyn. Well, Brooklyn, they got a big game against Denver at home, so they need to get this win. And then they got Toronto next week too. So these are 2 big games for this team. For them, they just need to maintain their position where they're at. They kind of have their identity solidified. They're anything interesting. You're not going to contend. But if they can keep their spot where they are, maybe they get lucky and can figure out some moves or something before this trade deadline. But it's not really looking much likely for them. Just keeping that spot where they are in the conference is most important. Charlotte's a really whack team. Man, these guys need to gain consistency and pick up momentum soon, because they are on a big road trip all the way to this break we have, the NBA All-Star Week. So these guys could either fall apart real quick, or they can gain a little bit more ground and be able to solidify themselves and have a better identity of what they need to do with themselves. But they're just kind of a funky team, and I just don't see much happening with them. The same goes with the Miami Heat. They're in the grave right now, the pits of misery, and I think they're going to stay that way. Games against the Blazers, the Kings, the Warriors, the Nuggets, the Mavs, all on the road. They're already doing bad as it is. So you can pretty much look at this team to fall apart and be in a potential crisis mode, and that means that the Pistons will be the team to pass them up and get in that top 8 this coming week. Some mediocre matches for them, so they should be looking good. All right, let's talk about the Western Conference now. The Rockets, as you know, the Rockets are leaning heavily on James Harden as of late. Now they got some middle of the road competition against some West teams. The most notable opponent, of course, is the Thunder. That'll be a big one. James Harden, if he keeps playing in godlike mode, it's the only thing they can lean on. But can he do it forever? I'm not so sure. this is a team that eventually is just gonna burn out, especially come playoff time. But you never know how they can react. But still, they just gotta keep position. Okay, the Spurs. This is a team that's on the road against the Warriors, the Blazers, the Jazz. They just lost Derek White for a little bit. That might lose some momentum for them. They've been still trying to figure out how to find their identity on the road. So this is their opportunity to do it. But without Derek White, it's really hard. He's a pivotal player for them. Yet still, let's see how Greg Popovich handles the situation. Watch for the Spurs to slip up a lot, though, right now. So they've been hot recently, gained a lot of momentum, and they might just lose it all going into the break. The Utah Jazz have also been gaining some momentum recently. They get to play the Spurs and the Warriors, and there's a chance that they should be able to climb the ranks with some easier opponents, especially since the Spurs have that tough time. Now the Clippers are also on an Eastern Conference road trip, and the main thing about them is, can they stay alive? Can they keep pace? Because if they cannot, well, they're pretty much going to slip out. But fortunately for them, the other two teams are the Kings and the Lakers, who are just right behind them. And the real thing about these teams is they're also going through a bunch of crisis momentum. The Kings being a young team with a lot of potential, but just not ready to pull the trigger. And of course, we know the Lakers, there's no telling what's going to happen with them. Are they going to make a blockbuster trade before the deadline in a couple days? Or are they just going to stay with where they are at and keep being this middle road team? Hopefully LeBron can stay healthy. But really, when you think about it, the Lakers should be able to pass these teams up. And for the Clippers, like I said, are they going to be able to figure something out soon where they can actually be a more consistent team? Because it's just not looking good for these bottom tier teams. Well, my friends, that should conclude our day today in the NBA. And we got some interesting matchups leading up to All-Star Week, and just kind of look forward to seeing how things shift and move and what teams actually are able to impress us given the certain positions they are in currently that we've discussed. Well, I hope you enjoyed today's Gil-Kist Nation Sports Talk about the NBA. Until the next time we see you, whenever that is, have a beautiful time and watch the NBA. Ciao, ciao!